Good evening, folks. Thanks for coming in. You're all very welcome. And this is our first show in about 2 months. It used to be regular, but this is the first one in, I don't know, near enough 2 months, because obviously we've had a lot going on with getting hitched and stuff like that, So this is my first show as a married man, actually. And Mark over here is my first guest as a married man.
That's right, yeah.
But tonight you'll recognise this guy's face. This is a gentleman who we have the honour of calling a close friend. He's a well-established author, well-respected in the paranormal field. He's been in the paranormal field for over 40 years. I'm not giving away his age. And he's also a very trusted tour guide at Brook House down south of the border. There's wee Eileen. And hi, Eileen, though. Eileen from Phantom Seekers Paranormal. So Mark knows his stuff. Mark knows it, So tonight we are going to be talking about. They got a fan there, Mark. Me, Eileen loves your content. Your content.
Thank you, Eileen.
She loves your content. No mention of me. It's probably been that long since you've seen me, but don't worry, Eileen. You'll get back into the sort of rhythm kind of thing, So tonight we're going to be talking about, Mark is going to be talking about 2 locations. One is where Mark recently did an investigation, and the other one is a place that he's got on the books that's coming up a few weeks' time. But how have you been, Mark? Because there's Laura and her home. Good evening. I hope we are both well. Love you too. See, that's Eileen. Trying to sweeten the deal now, so she loves me too. Yes, Laura, dear, I only spoke to Laura about 10 minutes ago on the phone, but we're doing pretty well. You doing all right, Mark? Laura's asking if you're keeping well.
Yes, I'm very well, thank you.
Yes, he's looking good. He's looking good. I'm not going to give away his age, but he's looking. Oh, you've always, I don't know, I think I've said to you this before, totally unparanormal related, but you've got a kind of Ray Winston look about you. See, the first time I saw you, I said to see.
Yes, you did say that to me. Yeah.
I said, see,
as a young man, I used to get taken for a guy called Steve Coppell, who played for Manchester United. People used to say to me, "Oh, you look like Steve Coppell." And I'm a Liverpool fan, so I don't want to look like anything to do with Manchester United. But
I don't know. I don't have a clue. I'm not a football man, so I don't have a clue who you're. I know some of the old famous players, but that's just for hearing their name all the time. But anybody else, I don't have a clue. I love you more than Eileen, Scott. You know this. I'll let you and Eileen argue that one out, Laura. You can debate that amongst yourselves. So what was I saying? So tonight we're going to be talking about, I'll probably get this right, Sharnbrook Mill.
Yes.
That's right, isn't it? Sharnbrook Mill and Brook House.
Yeah.
2 locations that Mark's very familiar with. And we've got a wee slideshow. Sarah kindly made up a slideshow because I don't have a clue what I'm doing with it. And we're going to be showing you photographs, and Mark will take us through the photographs. I think that's generally about it. But what have you been up to otherwise, Mark, before we get started on the good stuff?
Well, I've been doing some sort of local stuff. As you know, I do quite a bit at Sharnbrook House in Huntingdon. And in fact, we've got an event there this Friday. They hire the house out to groups of people. It's quite expensive. It's 900 quid for the night, but it's a very lovely location. And, groups come in. They allow up to 30 people. And that works out at 30 quid a head, which isn't too bad to do an investigation in a place like that from 7 at night until 2 in the morning. But yeah, they've got, can't remember their name. There's some people from right down south have hired it for this coming Saturday. So I shall be in there. I mean, I don't do any investigating really. I just basically show them around, tell them the history, tell them the haunted history, and go and find them when they get lost, because it's a big place.
I've seen quite a few photos of it, and it is quite quite a large location, basically. I mean, £900, it sounds a lot, but as you say, you 30 people in, that's £30 a head, that's £30 each. So £30 is actually quite reasonable compared to a lot of places. I know up here, some of the prices are just absolutely ridiculous, and you really need to get the numbers in to make it, worthwhile, basically. So 900, and plus with the kind of building it is, I mean, it's hundreds of years worth of history there.
Yeah, back in the day when I first started doing investigations, you were asked to come and investigate. You didn't pay any money ever. It was a house that had got either some sort of haunted problem, or people were just, it wasn't a problem, but they were just curious to know more. So you would get asked to go in. And I had go on.
No, just so you say, in the early days, you were actually going because maybe they had some kind of problem with that. Maybe they'd never experienced it before, so they wanted somebody maybe to tell them what was going on. But then, do you think maybe a lot of these places thought to themselves, well, do you know what? We could make money out of this.
Without doubt.
I know,
without doubt.
But let's start charging people. And I mean, there is some locations in the UK that are just cash cows. Let's face it.
I remember when I was lucky enough to be trained by Peter Underwood, who probably a lot of people don't know who he is, but he was a president of the Ghost Club for 30 odd years, and he was my uncle's cousin, which is why I sort of got into it. And he told me, I can remember this, I'm talking now about the early 1980s. He said the two places to be most careful of, he said, are hotels and pubs, because a hotel and a pub, it's quite lucrative to have a ghost. If you're walking down a street and there's two pubs, one on either side of the road, and one's reputedly haunted, which one do you go in? So I think there are a lot where, I don't know, perhaps something minor happened that could easily be explained, and suddenly it's been convenient to turn it into a ghost story,
I know exactly. I mean, I'll tell you a wee quick story. I'll tell you a wee quick story that happened to me and my friend. I'm going back many, many, many years, but I'll put Ireland's comments up first. I'll ask a lot of occasions with paranormal. It's quite a lucrative business now. There's a lot of teams, groups, whatever you want to call them out there that just concentrate on events. I got asked the other week, but somebody commented on one of my comments and they says, do you do events? And I says, no. We did look into it a few years back, but it was just too much hassle. We thought, you know what? No, we're not going to bother. But a lot of groups or teams, no disrespect to them, that's their thing. And a lot of these locations know that they turn and say, well, this place is haunted. We've got a white lady on the second floor, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Folk are going to come, And it might be Peter, another big respected name. Well, he was called the kind of granddaddy of the British Paranormal, UK Paranormal, whatever you want to call it. Paranormal.
After Harry Price, he was actually born just, I say down the road, probably 15, 20 miles down the road, a place called Letchworth. And my uncle, Trevor, he lived in Verwood in Dorset. But he was a Ghost Club member for 25 years. And when I had my experience when I was 15, and I went home and I told my mum, she basically said, don't be so bloody stupid, boy. And that would have been the end of it. But she was on the phone all the time to her sister, Trevor's wife. And basically she said, oh, Mark reckons he's seen a ghost. How stupid, blah, blah, blah. And Trevor was bringing my mum's sister Marilyn up to where we live to see her mother, my grandmother, and he sort of took me into a side room and we were in there for a good half an hour interviewing me. He was used to interviewing people. His name appears in a lot of Underwood's books because Underwood wrote about 60 books on the subject. I know one is called Nights in Haunted Houses, and by Peter Underwood, and Trevor is mentioned in that book. He went quite a few investigations with Peter, and funny enough, this is a really funny story, but well, yeah, we got I got a guy who's in the Ghost Club now, posted a photo on Facebook of his very first investigation he did with the Ghost Club, and it was to one of the World War II airfields in Lincoln that got like a haunted Lancaster bomber or something like that. And this photo that he posted has got Peter Underwood in it, and it's got my Uncle Trevor in it. And that's the first time I've ever seen a picture of the two of them together. So I got a little bit excited about it. But yeah, I'll send it to you later, Scott. And, you know, it shows Underwood, and my Uncle Trevor's on there as well, because my Uncle Trevor was very camera shy. He didn't like his photo taken. I mean, I even looked at my wedding photos from 1983, you know, like the group photos, and he's ducked behind people so that he's not in the gap.
He's one of these people that I'll just kind of stay out the way. You try to hide your head behind somebody else's head kind of thing. But just jumping back just quick before we come on to your two locations. Well, I was saying, you know, these pubs, something might happen in it, and people, it's definitely haunted. Actually happened to me many, I was a teenager, in fact, you know, and I was a friend of mine stays in London, and we used to drink in a pub called the Yeoman. And back then you could smoke in the pubs and stuff, and it was the round wooden tables. And there was one night him and I were sitting, and the old metal ashtrays used to get a kind of flattish sort of wide ashtrays. There was an ashtray sitting on the table, and it started moving on the table. So Brian and me were sitting watching this ashtray, and he's, you know, I can't remember the exact words, but it was something that, you know, like, do you see that ashtray moving? And so the two of us were transfixed on this ashtray that was moving. And there was 4 people, a couple of tables next, they were watching it as well. But it turned out it was a very, very thin layer of water. The table was wet.
Yeah. I was just going to say, one of the most common things.
And dried the table and put the ashtray back down. She says the table was wet. Yeah, a pair of, you know, numpties.
It's very, very common, Scott, especially in pubs, pint glass. You know, you get a pint poured and you put it on the bar, and it will like move along the bar. And it's just because there's some of the beer has got underneath the glass and formed like a, and you only have to, even like the vibrations made by a jukebox, you know, can cause that to happen. So again,
you hear that many, you hear that many stories where the pint moved, the pint glass moved right across the bars with the pubs haunted. But we watched this ashtray, and it moved a good, I don't know, maybe because it was quite big tables. It moved a fair wee distance across this table before the barmaid actually came out, and we just watched it move slowly. And we started to think, why the hell is that moving? But that's why it was. Table was wet. Surface tension in the table accounts for that often. It does, but then, you know, somebody sees that in a pub, they go and tell X, Y, and Z, and before you know it, it's the pub's haunted, there's loads of stuff happening, and then so people want to, you know, come and visit.
It brings me back to Scott, what Underwood told me. He said to me, when you're sort of investigating the paranormal, he said, instead of, you know, jumping to the conclusion that it's paranormal, he said, try and prove that it's paranormal. He said, first of all, try to prove that it's not paranormal. And he said, you know, a lot of people miss that out, and, you know, they just jump in straight away and see something that looks a bit difficult to explain. And the first thing is, oh, it's a ghost, it's haunted, you know. And very often it's not.
Exactly, it can be. It simply depends on what spirits have been consumed. Islands for the West Coast, the East Coast. So, you know, she's obviously not as funny as us West Coast people. You know what I mean? But I get what you mean, Eileen. I do get what you mean. You know, but she's a lovely wee lad. She's a lovely lady. So is our other half, Tommy. We threw to visit them a few months ago, and really nice people. But we'll move on to your two locations. The first is Sharnbrook Mill.
Sharnbrook Mill is first, Yeah, that's not that's actually the sort of it's a sort of lobby, because this mill, it dates back to the mentioned in the Doomsday Book. There's been a mill on this site. It's over the River Ouse, and obviously it's been built on and rebuilt on and stuff over the years. The oldest part of the existing mill is 1703, if I remember rightly. And when you sort of come into the mill, what they did with this mill, it was a mill for years and years and years, hundreds of years. And then basically 1969, if I remember, it so basically was no longer profitable. And so it stood empty for about 10 years. And then 10 years later, it became a theatre, and it's Sharnbrook Mill Theatre. You'll see as you go through the slides. And it's been a theatre since 1979. It's totally, and this, when you come into the theatre and you sort of buy your ticket or show your ticket in the reception, you come upstairs, and this is the sort of foyer area. There's to the, as you look at that picture to the right, there's a bar area with seats and everything in. And as you can see in the sort of middle of the picture, you can see that doorway with theatre above it. And that takes you through to the theatre that's there. It's a really interesting place because it's totally run there. That's looking down, so you're basically at the same level as that last picture, looking down at the stage in the theatre. And I got a call to go in there in 2015, 10 years ago. And in that last slide, what you showed, they'd had some activity. They used to have a seat on, as you look at that picture there, on the very far right, where it sort of says Paraday or whatever, the parade. There was a chair, and it was a wooden chair, but it was one of those wooden chairs that's got arms, and the arms were padded. It wasn't like a sofa chair, that sort of thing. And someone had seen a man sitting in it, and an old man wearing a flat cap, and they didn't know who he was. So somebody approached him, and he just dissolved in front of them. And then someone else saw it, and they'd had a lot of instances with the costumes. Costumes were going missing, and no one could find them. You know, they'd be put specifically in a place, sort of one evening, and then the next morning when they'd come in, they weren't there. And then probably 2-3 weeks later, they'd turn up, and they'd be in the most obvious places. So basically, they weren't frightened of it, but they were curious, and they said, "Well, you know, we think we're haunted. Can you come in and have a look?" Now that theatre is actually over a river, River Ouse. So if you go down into the cellars, you can hear the water below you. So it's quite an interesting building. As I said, the most modern bits of this building date back to 1703, but there's been a mill on this site. It's recorded in the Doomsday Book. So very old building. So yeah, you're looking, if you go to the next slide, Scott. Yeah, that's looking from the stage. So you're on the stage looking up at the theatre. And the guys who run this theatre, they're all retired. The men do all the sort of scenery and the scenic stuff and the sort of, if you like, carpentry work. And all the women make the clothing. And they put on about, it's all voluntary, nobody gets paid. They put on about 6 performances a year. And we've had some interesting, I've investigated it a number of times. As I said, the first time was 2015. What we've experienced in the shot you can see there is you can see the seats, and the seats are all down. Well, they fold up like a cinema seat. And we were finding that when we were in the dark and we were investigating, seats were coming down as if someone had put the seat down and then sitting on it, you know. And I thought, well, perhaps the seat is faulty. So you'd go up and I'd put the seat sort of in the upright position again. And I would like jump up and down and make a sort of lot of vibrations and that to see if I could get it to fall down again, but I couldn't. And then later on, there'd be a seat somewhere else in there, you know, in another part of the theatre. So quite an interesting place.
I've heard that a few times. It's quite. There's a theatre. I don't know if it's still there. Actually, up Musical Grade. It's called the Village Theatre. It's in an area called the Old Village, which is the original part of East Kilbride, dates back hundreds of years, but it's the original. Where East Kilbride started, there's a wee village, then it's expanded out over the years. Excuse me, but there's it's called the Village Theatre, and I always remember stories of that being, people say it was really, really haunted, and seats coming down and seats going up was one of the most common things that people would report. I've never been in the building. I never was in the building, but you would hear stories and what have you. And the seats were one of the most common kind of thing, and I think the Citizens Theatre in Glasgow, which it's a big enough theatre, it's not as big as the Kings and the Pavilion, the major ones, but even like I said, the Pavilion, the Citizens Theatre, they're meant to be haunted as well. And the seats moving there are quite a common thing.
Well, I've heard a lot of instances where, with theatres in particular, where there's one particular seat, and they say, "Oh, it's the ghost of, I don't know, Joe Bloggs," and he always comes and he takes his seat. That was his seat when he was, alive, and so on and so forth. But this is not like that. This is actually. It's not one particular seat. The seat seems to move around. So whenever we investigate here, the first thing we do before we start a vigil is, with our torches, we make sure that every seat is up. And then we're probably doing the vigil on the stage. And then obviously with the lights off, and then basically we have a look at them. And if a seat has come down, I always make a point of going to that seat, putting it up and sort of jumping about and making a lot of vibration and that to see if it is a faulty seat, because these seats came out of a cinema, I believe. They're second hand. They're in good condition, but I think they came out of a cinema that closed. What is interesting, you can't see it from this picture here, but these people here, these retired people, they've put their own central heating system in. Because you've got the water below, the current of the water drives a turbine, which heats like a heat exchanger. And behind all those seats, there are pipes sort of all lagged with sort of, so you can put your feet on them and not damage them. But it's always, when you go into the place like that, because as you can see, it's a fairly big place. When you go in, place is always warm because they pay next to nothing for heating. It's all done by the river for them.
That's quite a good idea. You don't use a common Fridays or stick up in a wee sec. Using one theory, just you talk about the seats and they came for a cinema. This might sound nuts, but in the paranormal, Mark, you need to look at every kind of avenue sort of thing, really. If the seats came for a cinema, do you think maybe that when the seats were in the cinema, that there was, spirits there and they came along with the seats? That makes sense.
It could be possible. There are a lot of people who are of the opinion. I mean, museums in particular, where the museum isn't haunted, but the objects within it are. We've sort of had a lot of people have had that theory with. One of the places I've spoken about before, called Ramsey Rural Museum, which is out in the middle of the Fens, a very remote place. But they've had quite a lot of activity, and it appears in my book, Ramsey Rural Museum. And there is a thought that it's the items in the museum rather than the museum itself that's haunted.
It's interesting you say that. I'll put Irene's comment up and then I'll come back to what you just said there. I've investigated a couple of theatres. The dressing room areas have been active more than Arena.
I haven't got a picture here, but this, when you were looking, you're looking from the stage up at the seats, but behind the stage where the dressing rooms are, obviously they're putting makeup on and that to do their performances. So you've got two wall-to-wall mirrors, And it's a great place when I took some people over there who'd never been on a paranormal investigation, and they just wanted to come for the experience. And I let them have a go at scrying, because you can scry in those mirrors. It's perfect for anybody who wants to try that, because you've got sort of two whole walls, one on either side of the dressing room area, that are mirrors, makeup mirrors, what people sit in front and put their makeup on before they go on stage.
It's just what you were saying about the haunted objects. We don't deal a lot with haunted objects. I'm not saying that it's not true, but it's just something we've never really looked into. But there is a location in Glasgow that we've done a few times with Spig, Riggers team, and it's an old school building. And I don't know if I've told you this or not before, but in the building there's an old display cabinet, and it's got things like old school caps, medals, badges, that kind of thing, going back to like the 1800s sort of thing. And one of Riggers' team, he actually works in the places. He's worked there for 20 plus years. But this particular cabinet, when you put a K2 on, you set a K2 on it, the K2 goes nuts. If you lift the K2 off it, it goes dead. Now there's no wiring or anything in the wall. This cabinet sits against a wall. There's no wiring, nothing on that wall. We've tried it a few times, and then we swapped K2 meters just to double check. Every meter we put on it goes nuts. As soon as you lift it off, it goes dead. And we've tried holding the meter above it, below it, side to side, nothing. But as soon as it touches this cabinet, it goes nuts. And we've never been able to explain why that is. So, is it possible that there's something in that cabinet that is? We know there's a few spirits in this building that means something to one of the people who's still hanging about. We can't explain that one.
Well, I wouldn't discount it. Objects being haunted. I mentioned Ramsey Rural Museum, and over there, one of the exhibits upstairs in a stable block area is to do with the railways. The time of the steam trains, and a number of people have had experiences there and actually captured not a full-bodied apparition, but they've actually sat there and seen a shape come from this railway area. And, this bizarre stuff, they said, it came out, it went right up to the ceiling. It was just like a telegraph pole. It came out, it went up to the ceiling. When it hit the ceiling, it came back down again. And then it went back to this sort of display area where the railway stuff is. So I've not witnessed that myself, but I have witnessed stuff in that area. So, the thing is with Ramsey Rural Museum, it's on the site of Ramsey Abbey, which is basically, when it was built, I think it's something like 969 AD. So it's very, very old, that particular piece of land. So it could be the land. It's a bit like saying, you go into a brand new house and you've got a ghost. And where's it come from? The house is brand new, and then you do a bit of research and you find actually there was stuff there before this house was built. I think that you can get that. I've got that where I'm sitting now. Yeah, where I'm sitting now, Scott, my own house. We've got a reputation. This house was built by my father in 1964. He was a bricklayer. And we've had stuff go on here, not lately. And I had a medium come in, a very good medium, and he said to me, there is something here. He said, but it's nothing to do with this property. It's the property that was here before it. And so I did some research, and I found that there was a row of thatched farm workers' cottages that were here. Obviously, they were knocked down for this house to be built. So he said, won't do you any harm. He's mischievous. He said, I can see visions of him coming home in the back of a hay wagon, absolutely drunk. This person, he said, he's a prankster. He'll muck about and have a joke with you and stuff like that. My mother saw it not long after they'd moved in. I never did, but I have experienced what I would call poltergeist activity in this house. It was sort of kept away from me when I was very young because I was only 3 years old when I moved in here. So they kept it all away from me and didn't tell me, you know. But I used to, for instance, I'd sit in the bath and I would hear like footsteps coming up the bath, and I would sort of say to my mum, I thought it was my mum coming up to wash my hair because I was only a young child. And she's told me afterwards. She said, I used to say it was me coming up, or I used to say it was the immersion heater. Well, the immersion heater filling up with water sounds nothing like feet coming, footsteps up the stairs. But I was too young. I just accepted it, you know.
You're just like
yeah. It's actually appeared in this house. Appears in my book, but it appeared in 2 other houses before me. There are 2 other books. There's 2 other books. I think one's called Walking Through Walls, and I've got them downstairs actually, but they feature the stories, you know.
It's when you hear the island saying, I think some objects can hold a vibration rather than an actual haunting, if you know what I mean. No, yeah. I totally agree. I see that this cabinet is very, very weird. You know, it's a nice cabinet, all the bits and bobs in it, but we just cannot explain the K2. Talk about footsteps. We've encountered that before. The biggest one I remember is at Loudon-Kirk. You always get footsteps, but I can never bloody hear them. Everybody else seems to hear them. I don't hear them. But we heard it at Dunure Castle one. Dunure Castle sits right on the west coast, just south of Ayr. And we've investigated there a few times. We always get activity, but one particular night, just the castle, there's a wee tiny footpath right beside the castle, and it's gravel. And we were all there one night, and we heard footsteps coming along, very distinct. You know, everybody heard them. Now, it's massive big fields all around this castle. So I like to see if somebody was there, not a soul. And it's all open grassland, you know, so there was nowhere anybody could hide, but everybody heard these crunching footsteps coming along. It's a small footpath, it's nothing big, but everybody heard these loud crunching footsteps coming along this wee bit of path, and then they just disappeared. So you say to yourself, you know, who was it? Something made the noise, but everybody was accounted for. You know, we were on the same section of the castle. So it's no if somebody was away walking about with a camera or something. Everybody was accounted for, but we heard it. We go down in the Ivy House, we caught on camera in the Ivy House actually, down near Warrington. Distinct footsteps, it sounded like old-fashioned school shoes, coming into sounded like they were coming into the room, and then the light and the camera moved, and then there was a sort of, we can only describe as a little girl kind of playful giggling, and then we heard the footsteps as they were leaving the room. Everybody was up the stairs, so we know there was nobody down that stair, and there was nobody, no other outside source, but we definitely heard this footsteps coming in. Now, the interesting thing was our light was attached to the top of the camera. But the light moved, but the camera never. If that makes sense. It's all like one unit. It screws together. But the camera never moved, but the light moved. So we were totally bamboozled, but the footsteps were quite evident. I mean, back to the mill. We get back to the mill.
Okay.
Way off topic.
Next slide. Yeah, that's the front of the mill. That obviously it's at night. That's where you go in through the reception area, and then you go up those some stairs, and that takes you to that foyer area where I was telling you the old man was seen. And there's a bar up there as well. And then obviously when people have had their drink, they sort announce that the show's about to start, and people make their way up to the theatre.
That's a nice. I like
not
that.
much more.
That
was taken on an investigation. Yeah.
I like the shine of the lights in the sky, the building, and I don't know with the contour, whatever the hell. I don't know. I'm not a photographer, but I do. I like
that photo was taken. When that photo was taken, Scott, there was I don't know. I can't remember if it was a full moon or it was a nearly full moon, but you can probably see if you look to the sort of the sky. As you look to the right, you can see the sort of eave of the building, and you can see a sort of white area behind it. And I think the moon was there, and we got a picture. I've got a picture of it on my PC somewhere with the moon behind it, which it looks sort of kind of spooky, but really nice, you know.
Yeah,
give us the next.
Up the top
give us the next slide. The next slide, Scott. Yeah, that's the same area, but that's obviously in the daylight. So yeah, when we go in there, one of the good things about this place is I've been investigating it. I probably go once every year, sometimes every 2 years. The area that you can see that's green, you can see the grey door. That's the sort of tradesman. That's the tradesman's entrance. So when I go in there to do an investigation, they know me so well, they give me the key. I go and pick it up, and basically I can stay in there all night if I want. So in that sort of foyer lobby area upstairs, you can take in a sleeping bag and stuff like that and spend the whole night. It's I don't know if you've heard about this thing about the 3 a.m. being the prime time for haunted activity.
We've investigated Greyfriars before we found out about the ban. We investigated Greyfriars at 3 a.m. one night. I'm talking, we were in a long running practice, so 5 years ago. And we had, the witching hour at 3 a.m. blah blah blah. And we went, but the only thing we got marked was 2 flat batteries. That's how long ago we just 2 batteries, and the 2 of them just totally drained.
I must admit, I'm not convinced with this 3 a.m. thing. And I've been doing this quite a long time now, and I can't say that I've been in places at 3 a.m. In most instances, by about 2 a.m., people are starting to get a bit tired, and so there's not very many instances where you stay, longer. But this is one of them where you can stay all night if you want. What I do is I basically lock up when I leave in the morning, and I have to return the key back to them. But in 10 years, I've built up an element of trust with them. They know that we're not going to wreck the place, and obviously they're charging us to go in there, so they're getting an income. The only thing with this place is it's become so popular that I think it's taken away a bit of the activity. It's sort of like the batteries run down. When I go in there, it's weird. Sometimes I can get stuff. Other times it's absolutely dead. The first time I investigated it in 2015, it'd never been investigated before. It was absolutely buzzing. You didn't want it to end. There was so much stuff going on. But nowadays, they don't hurt you too much. I think they charge about 240 quid to spend the night in there. And
that's actually really, really good.
Yeah. Well, you can take, I think you're allowed up to 15 people in there. But, it is one of the few places where you can actually stay overnight. We investigated there a couple of weeks ago, and we had some activity, which I was pleased about because I'd got some new people with me who'd never been on an investigation. So they, and I made a big issue of saying, look, paranormal activity is not guaranteed. We're going to go in there. You might get something. If you don't get nothing, expect not to get anything, because more times you get nothing than you get something. And, so I was quite pleased to actually get some stuff happen.
Do you think it's better, getting off topic again, but, I mean, I've had a few people say to me, I'm going my first paranormal investigation with that, and I usually say, well, don't expect anything, just go wherever it is you're going, don't expect nothing. But if somebody's going along, for their first ever investigation, do you think it's better? That's just the way my mind works. If they don't get any activity, because at the end of the night, you can turn and say to them, well, you've probably watched all these ghost shows on TV and stuff like this, but tonight you've experienced a real investigation, and you can see yourself that spirits don't always play ball, basically.
I can remember this particular location. I can remember one particular story, which is quite interesting. There's a lady, I don't see her now because unfortunately she lost her husband and she had to move away, but her name was Marcia Bonner, and she came to this place. It was the very first investigation, and I was dowsing with a glass. I said, oh, we'll try this dowsing, and we weren't actually sitting round a table. We were in the bowels where the costume rooms are and everything, and basically on a piece of furniture that was, if you can imagine the old-fashioned pianos, they've got the top of the old piano, sort of area like that. We put this glass on there, and we just, I don't put like a Ouija board out. I was just basically saying, move it this way for yes, that way for no. He started straight away. She was absolutely gobsmacked because she could feel that glass moving by herself, by itself, and it happened straight away. And when we were there the other day, I sat with these people and we did a similar thing in the bar area. And I said to them, look, I said, you've got to persevere with this at least 10 minutes to see if it's going to move. Sometimes it doesn't. I said, and but at least give it 10 minutes. And it took a long time, but it started to move, and then it got quite quick. Whether or not it's a spirit or whether or not it's our subconscious moving it, I don't know. But it's definitely paranormal because we can't explain what's making that move. So
exactly. It's happened to me. Lloyd Kirk and Lucky, there was another team there, and two saw it. It was a branch actually. It was lying in the ground, and it was Unlocked Paranormal. We're doing there. We was investigating. It was me and one of the guys were standing, and this branch moved about 90 degrees. Now we had all torches on and what have you. So the ground was fairly lit up. There wasn't any, the grass was short. And this branch, and the two looked at the branch and then looked at each other. There was no wildlife, there was no mice, nothing like that. But the branch actually turned about 90 degrees. And I can't remember the guy's name, but he was like, did you see that? I said, what did you see? I said, that branch moved. He said, that's exactly what I saw. The branches turned for whatever reason. I always put up a good comment, and I kind of agree with the rover investigator, overhyped spirit must be jaded and fed up, basically. What do you think? I mean, let's face it, I've always said that, when we pass over with the exact same people except the physical body, so if we're hanging about like a place and people keep asking us to, throw a ball, touch a K2, whatever, I'm not doing this anymore.
I am a believer I am a believer that places can be over investigated, and I don't know whether it's energy from the dead or energy from the building that's harnessed in there. But if you're going in there too much and wanting it, it's going to run out eventually. That's my thought. Or it might need time to rebuild. I don't know. These are all, we're talking hypothetically because we don't know.
We don't know. I mean, this is why I'm on the fence with places like East Drive. It's. I mean, I know you've been there. I've never been there. I've watched. Have you not been to East Drive? You've been to East Drive.
Oh, no, I'll tell you what, Scott. Yeah, when I saw East Drive the first time, I don't know how many years ago, it suddenly sort of out of nowhere, it suddenly became a big thing. And with what was being said and what went on, a friend of mine, Loretta, who's in my team, she's been there, and she said that stuff happened. But my first thoughts when I watched that stuff and heard the stories, I thought to myself, this is a scam. It struck me, when it's too good to be true, it normally isn't true.
I
Just
even
seeing,
saying that he's the scariest thing, isn't it? We had the chance to invest a couple of years ago with GSI. John, the lead investigator, he phoned me on the Monday and says, "Listen, we've got East Drive on Wednesday. Do you want to come down and investigate with us free of charge?" There's no, but it was too short notice for us babysitting and stuff like that to get done. But flat as a pancake for me. You see, that's it. I don't know, but people say, "Oh, East Drive, it's mega haunted and blah blah blah." But then you watch so many videos on it, and people say, "There's nothing here. We've got nothing." And is it just? I mean, look at Amityville, for example. How many years was that hyped up, and then it turned out it was fake?
Yeah.
You know,
when people are going there to investigate, they do become a cash cow. There's no doubt about it. It's a means of making money, and the more they hype it up and that, the more they can charge.
That's it.
No,
exactly.
I've never been to it. I've never been to East Drive, but when it first sort of came to prominence, my bullshit monitor was going off. I thought, I don't really. I'm not going to rush into this. I'll sit back and see what other people find. And then, as you said, the majority of them have said nothing here. Oh, the neighbour next door, knocking on the walls and doing stuff like that. Obviously, it's lucrative because all this money's been paid for a. Yeah, let's face it, it's a pretty grotty old council house, isn't it?
I think I don't know if it's 6-7 nights a week it's investigated. You know what I mean? It's done. Pardon the pun. It's done to death. I don't know how much it is for a night. Say 300 quid. You do that 7 nights a week, 300 quid. That's over $2,000 a week.
Yeah,
just for letting people in. So I dare say the neighbour could be next door with a frying pan or something hitting it off the wall or something. You just
well, I've seen a couple of YouTube videos of people who have stayed there, and they said, it's fake. There's nothing here. You've got the person next door is doing this and that, which is obviously making things sound like they're happening, but they were of the opinion. But I wouldn't sort of stand back and say this is absolute rubbish. There's not a grain of truth in it. But I would want to go and basically let other people spend their money and see what they say before I went in, and that's why I've never been in there, Scott.
I mean, I'm sorry, but I say the most active or most haunted locations are the ones that nobody's ever heard of, that are hardly investigated. We've had that so many times. I mean, Loudon's a prime example for us, but we're lucky enough now that we feel we're built up with trust of the spirits that are there. Eileen, she's been there. That we've built up their trust now. But like I said, Caldwell, Dalquaham, places that urban explorers go to. But before we did Caldwell Estate, we couldn't find any other team that had done a paranormal investigation. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but we couldn't find anybody at all. We found plenty of these urbex explorers that had been in, but we couldn't find any paranormal on Facebook, YouTube, anything. And we spent about 2 months there, and the activity we got was unbelievable. And so that made me think, well, is this because nobody's ever investigated here before? And we basically came to see them. Loved Loudon, that was. It's one of these places, as soon as you walk in the gate, as Alan says, the atmosphere just hits you. When you make it up here, Mark, that's the first place we're taking you, is to Loudon. Because obviously it's got that extra special meaning for us now because we get married there. But soon as you walk in the gate, it's all, it's just this atmosphere. Just quickly before we move on with the mill, actually, before I forget, Ryan, listen as well. I don't know if you remember me talking ages and ages ago that I get the smell of perfume at Loudon in one investigation I did in the Spig. Well, in the last few weeks, we've been talking to people. One is it's a group that looks after Loudon, the Friends of Loudon Kirk. And the week before the wedding, Sarah and I were there. Laura was there as well. We went to meet them at the Kirkyard just to talk about the wedding. And I was talking to the lady, and she was saying that one of the ladies in the group had reported smelling perfume at the crypt area. I don't know who this lady was, whatever, but she's reported she's got a strong smell of perfume. And I was talking to a woman last week on Facebook, and she had done Loudon quite a few times, and she showed me a report that she had written for a team she used to be with. And in it, she mentions the strong smell of perfume.
Yeah. So paranormal odors are very common. And the two most common are perfume or tobacco. That they are the, I've seen hundreds of reported cases of paranormal odors. I've got one in my book where the odor is rotting flesh. That's in St. Neots. They went and had the blooming the building, exercised and everything else. But generally speaking, it will be perfume or tobacco. But this particular one is an old pub. It became a Halifax building society. It's sitting empty now. I'd love to go in it, but it's owned by the Halifax, and you can't get in. I'm thinking you've got this old building. It's just sitting there.
We've got some of them here. There's one up near Stirling. I'm dying to get into, pardon the pun, but you just cannot get. But I would love to go in. To just talk about odours just quickly before we carry on with the rest of the slides for the mill. What about bleach? Have you ever?
I've not heard.
Laura and I did an investigation a couple of months ago with Forth Valley Paranormal in a place called Dunsmore House. It's an old stately home. It's totally empty now. It's cheese and everything. But we were just at the entrance to the basement, and there was a very, very strong smell of bleach. Laura smelled it as well. And this building,
bleach is renowned. I know bleach is a smell that's renowned for lingering, staying. If someone cleans a cellar with bleach, that smell will stay.
As soon as you walked in, the house hasn't. I mean, the houses are ruined. The house hasn't been occupied for 100 odd years or whatever. But as soon as you stepped in, just a free entrance, I said, "Can you smell bleach?" And she's like, "I really, really." I heard I heard a woman laughing as well that night. That was quite interesting. I get tobacco at home. Nobody smokes. My late dad smoked a pipe. I've had other validation that he's here. So as you say, tobacco and perfume. So we've got the bleach smell as well. I've never smelled that before, but it was definitely.
No, I've never come across that.
I thought, where could it be coming from? There's so obviously we went a wee wander and had a wee look, but there was no. I couldn't explain it. It's in the middle of the countryside. But I found the perfume thing very interesting. As soon as I spoke to this lady for the Friends of Loudon Kirk, I said to Sarah, mind the perfume smell? I go, and then this other woman the other week, she'd mentioned it in the report that she'd written a couple of years ago about perfume. I thought, well, there you go, that's three different, and it's at the same bit as at the crypt of Lady Flora Campbell. It makes you think, is it her? But moving along, we'll get through these slides eventually.
That's another that slide you can see there is the other side of the building. So you can see that sort of green looks like a railway carriage on the side, but that you can the sort of building on the left is where the foyer is and the bar and stuff like that. At the back, the tall building is where the theatre is. But you can actually, this has been built on the side. This green looks like a railway carriage, and you can actually walk over there. And if you look, you're walking on above the river.
You know, that reminds me, it's going to sound stupid, again, I'm getting off subject, but my doctors, when I was a child, I always remember you walked in the door of my doctor, you went up these stairs, and there was something like that. You walked round this wee corridor, and it took you into the back of the surgery, and that's exactly where it looked. Just when I saw that, that's what it reminded me. That's exactly where it. Yeah. And I'm going back to
what you can do with that green sort of corridor is you can go from the sort of foyer, if you like, the public area of the building, and you can walk down there and you can go through the back there and be backstage. So, you know, without going through the theatre itself. So I think that's the purpose that serves, because the theatre itself is in the tall building in the middle. And that would give you the ability to, where the building on the left, which is a sort of reddy colour, you can go through that where the bar and the foyer and the public generally are, and go through that little green sort of train carriage looking part and get to the, you know, behind stage without nobody knowing, you know.
As if it's just been stuck on. Eileen's asking, is the mill wheel still there?
Yes, it's not a mill wheel like you would imagine a water mill, but if you're in the bowels of that sort of big building, if you're in the bowels of it, you can hear the water below you, and that's where all the grinding was done. But there's no wheel there as such. I should really take some photos of that area. It's where they keep all the props. They've got a props room down there, and they've also got two other rooms. They're absolutely crammed full of costumes and things from different eras, you know, all sorts of stuff. It's quite interesting. I mean, when we first used to go in there, they used to leave that open and we could go in and have a look at the costumes and that. But now that they have sort of general other people pirate, things sort of got, you know, I think people got bored and took a costume off and either put it on or mucked about with it. And so they have to keep those rooms locked now to stop, you know, investigators from going in there. Well, we went in there, but we were totally respectful. We never took things off the sort of basically great big coat hanger racks, you know, with all these different costumes on.
I need to ask you, did you ever try a costume or two on?
No, most of them too small for me.
No, I never tempted just to, I'm going to stick that on, see how it looks. No. Yeah. I had to ask that.
There are other things down there. There are other things down there. I mean, remember the first, and I've got a photo of this. First time I went down in the props room, there was just like an electric chair, you know, what they used in the States to kill people, and it was just it's just a made up one, you know, for the theatre, and everyone went there to sit in that and stuff, and there are things like hats and wigs and all those sorts of things. Yeah, that's the mill from the front end. If you look at that picture that you can see on the right, there's green trees. If you could look behind those green trees, you'd see the reception and the entrance that you saw on the earlier ones. So again, you know, that big building there that you see right in front of you is basically where the theatre is.
Just you can see it's quite that cool. You can see as tall as you see what. Certainly in that photograph, you can kind of imagine the horses and wagons coming back and forward.
Oh, yeah.
With the bales or whatever it was you called them. Just on a daily basis, you know, getting loaded, unloaded, whatever, and the mill workers kind of wandering about.
Well, I think I might be wrong here, but I think they used to. They didn't only just grind flour; they actually manufactured here, and I think it was biscuits. But if you go on to, you Google Sharnbrook Mill Theatre and you go on their website, you will be able to, see that you can go and look at the history of the building. And I know that the newest part, the oldest parts of the current structure date from 1703. But obviously there was a mill there going back to the Domesday books. So, but that water that you can see there, that's not the main river. That's a sort of tributary that runs off it. And they've harnessed the current, and it's that current that drives the dynamos to power the building.
Right, for the
I think they have. So the beauty of this place, because you can see how big it is when you go there in the sort of middle of November, like we did the other week, you're expecting, great big building like this sitting empty. It's going to be freezing. And there are bits of the building that are cold, but generally speaking, the main sort of area where the public would be and where the seats are, it's lovely and warm. And the theatre, you notice that it feels warm, when you walk in that theatre. It's lovely. And they don't ever turn it off because it's... You don't need to.
They pay next to nothing, to eat. So you would be quite pleasantly surprised walking in November, December time. You would expect it to be absolutely...
They've got an electrical pump that pumps the water. Drives a turbine, I think, that generates heat, that heats the water, and then they use electricity to pump that water around their system. But that's the only electricity. They're not using electricity to heat the water, which really costs some money. So and these are all old age pensioners who've done this. It's very clever people there, and they've done all this work, and it's been going on since 1979. So it's been going on a while, and it's like a little family. When I go there to pick the key up, there's husbands and wives, and it's just like a little family. All beef in a way. None of them gets paid. Yeah.
See, that's nice. It shows you their love and devotion for it as well. They put that much time into it, and that much work into it, and keeping the place the way it's looking. It just shows you. And I mean, I think we need more of that these days in some of the old buildings that we've got, because a lot of them just go to nothing. You know what I mean? But I think that's a slide for the mill.
Sharnbrook Mill Theatre.
So we go now to Brook House.
Brook House, yeah.
Brook House.
Yeah, that's Brook House.
You know that?
Yeah.
You know what that actually looks like, Mark? I get you.
No.
The Home Alone house.
Oh, right.
Home Alone.
Well, it's not far from me. I should imagine as the crow flies, that's 3 or 4 miles from me, as the crow flies. It's basically in the centre of St Neots. I don't know if you've ever heard of St Neots. St Neots is sort of right on the edge of Cambridgeshire, where it joins with Bedfordshire. And Brook House goes back to just after the English Civil War. So you're talking early 18th century.
I was asking George.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, nobody knows how old it is. It's so old, there's no deeds or anything. But they had an expert who came in, and he said by the decor, he didn't think it was around at the time of the Civil War, but he felt it was just after. He said, just early 1700s, or perhaps even late 1600s. He said, but more likely early 1700s, looking by the decor. It has a long haunted history. I first became aware of it in the late 1970s, and I put it in my book. It features in my book, and quite an interesting story, because I did quite a lot of research on it. And one of the interesting things that it's got linked to it is a suit of armour. I managed to find a lady who, a friend lived there. It used to be owned by a solicitor. and he actually collected stuff. That's in the sort of, as you sort of walk through the reception area. That's one of the shots that are from the hallway. The stairs here are said to be haunted. People have seen an apparition of a young woman on there who appears to be weeping very heavily, so much so her shoulders are moving up and down, but you can't hear any sound. And she's been seen by a number of people. There is a story, but I can't prove it, that she worked in the house and the master of the house at the time made her pregnant and basically said to her, get out, and she's sitting on the stairs there weeping. So that's the story behind that.
What about that? The inshore with us flat standers. That looks kind of, I don't know, that kind of looks out of place, does it not?
No, that if you can see me sitting on the seat, if you were standing in front of me looking at me and you turned left and walked, this is as you sort of walk, as I walked that way on my left, I would see that little alcove. It doesn't do anything, it's just decorative.
Do you think that was maybe once a doorway or something?
Could have been. I mean, I don't know, to answer your question honestly, Scott. But there's been a suit of armour seen. People outside have seen a suit of armour through various windows, and when they've gone. This particular lady, she was friends with the girl, the solicitor, his daughter, and they had stables at the back. They had a pony and stuff, and she went up to see her friend in the house, and basically, as she walked towards the front door, on the window on the right hand side, she could see this suit of armour. So she just assumed that the father he used to collect military stuff, guns and stuff. She just thought it was another piece to his collection. And she said to the girl when she came in, I saw your dad's armour, and she said there's no suit of armour. And that has happened more than once. It's in the St. Neots chapter of my book, Scott. If you have a look at it, you'll see the whole story. Her name's Anne-Marie Hamilton. And that's the dining room, by the way, that you can see there now. So as you face the front of the house, like the first slide, that's on your left-hand side as you face the front of the house.
Right, so that's the
room is night.
That's the room that's no.
The suit of armour. Yeah, when you look at the front door, the window on the ground floor immediately to the right is where this girl saw the suit of armour. However, her sister saw the same suit of armour in the upper window above the door. And the girl I was talking to you who saw this suit of armour in the window to the right of the front door that's got lights on, she spent the night in a bedroom on the upper floor on the right hand side. As you look at it, you can probably just see a little yellow burglar alarm box, and she was sleeping up there. And she had a very strange evening. She laid awake all night, was scared to death. It was summer, baking hot, but she said in that room it was icy cold. And she laid awake all night until it became just about light. And then she left the house and went to the back where her pony was kept in the stable and stayed with her pony. Because she was frightened of actually saying anything because, in case they ridiculed her and said, don't be stupid, But she said the room was so cold, and she said it was high summer.
But that one particular room was freezing. See, a lot of people, I've said that, I was on a post the other week there, and that's what I said about that woman, Loudon, the second woman that verified the person. It was a post that she put up, and that says, she's reported seeing what she described as a figure with a jacket on in a street in Kilmarnock where we live. And this figure just disappeared. And so I commented saying, it's a lot more common than you think, but a lot of people are wary of coming forward, but in case they get slagged off, basically laughed at. I said,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
these things happen quite on an everyday
That,
basis. But people are kind
that's
of
why I say, Scott.
scared. No scared.
Well,
They don't want to talk about it.
yeah. That's why I say when people investigate, I say to them, never ever do a lone vigil, because if you're on your own, you don't know what you're dealing with if you get into any sort of trouble. And I said, secondly, if something does happen and you're the only person there, you've got no witness. You know, if you've got somebody with you, you've got a bit more credibility because they'll have seen it too. And you know, if you're on your own and you just say, "Oh, this happened, that happened," people say, "Oh, don't be daft," you know, you imagined it or whatever, you know. Yeah, that's the stairway. That's the stairway.
Who's that fine-looking chap standing on these stairs, looking all suave?
That was that's the stairs where this woman has been reported. This full-body apparition of a woman sitting on the stairs, weeping. You know, you can actually see her shoulders going up and down because she's weeping so hard.
And
I've not seen it.
You've not seen her yet.
No,
that floor's nice.
That's a reception. That you can see on the right-hand side, the white door. When you walk through that door, that's what you're greeted with. The reception area.
That's beautiful. That I like that, especially the floor.
Yeah, there are. This is a. This building was empty when I was writing my book. The building was empty, and I definitely wanted to go in it. And it was going at one point to be converted into flats, and luckily some millionaire guy came along and bought it for his daughter as an investment, and he trusted the lady who runs it now, Fiona, to sort of run it. And basically the building is full of basically sort of health and beauty treatments. You can go in there and I've been there with Fiona, who's the lady who runs it, and you've had like a hot stone massage. It's lovely. I mean, it's not cheap,
I've seen that. I don't know if I fancy that or no, Mark. I've seen that on the telly.
Yes,
the stones.
Lovely.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you had
they
it
do
done?
as well these things. Yeah, I've had it done 2 or 3 times. Yeah, I like it.
I don't know. The jury's out in that one.
They've also they've got this one of the treatment centres there, Scott. They've got, you can go in and they put a little stitch in the sort of top of your cheek, and it sort of lifts your cheekbones like it's having a facelift. It's just one stitch, and you know they basically I think they give you a little something anaesthetic, not much, and then they just sort of put this needle through, and they sort of stretch your cheekbone upwards, and then it sort of heals, and it's like having a cheek facelift, I guess.
I imagine it's all quite expensive stuff, but
oh yeah, it's not. I'll tell you as well. Have you ever heard who's got a clinic here? Have you ever heard of a guy called Matthew Manning?
No.
You ever heard that name? Yeah. Well, you and anybody who's listening, they need to Google Matthew Manning, because he's an incredible guy. He's actually a healer, but he started off with a very famous poltergeist story. If you type into Google Matthew Manning poltergeist, and there's like YouTube films as well. He did sort of tremendously miraculous things, and he went on the David Frost show, and I think it was Russell Harty's show. He did David Frost and Russell Harty, and he had a woman there who hadn't been able to taste for about 30 years, and he did some stuff on her, and she could taste. She could suddenly, and it's filmed, you know. Yeah, it's worth
having a wee look up.
It's worth it. Matthew Manning. Yeah, he has actually Cambridge area. He was educated in Cambridge, but he's got a clinic here, and you know people go to him for healing. I mean, I think it's quite expensive, but
I imagine it would be. But I see the stones and that on the nah, no for me. I've had acupuncture done. That was okay.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's a hub. Sarah used to work. I used to volunteer there as well. That's one of the girls in it did acupuncture. Used to go here every Wednesday, whatever. Used to get in and stick the needles in your ears.
yeah.
And then do I don't know, chants or whatever it was. That was quite relaxing, you know, but the old stones and that, I don't know.
You'd
Again,
love
this
it.
is the front
You'd
of the
love it,
house.
Scott.
I
Yeah, this
might
is the
try it
front of the
one day.
house. Yeah, basically, yeah, I'm going in here again. We had an instance, the last time we investigated here was probably just over a year ago. And there's a room which they call the ballroom. It's a very large room on the sort of left-hand side as you look at that picture of the whole house. We did some table tipping in there, and this was extraordinary. This table that we had, it went 4 or 5 yards across the room, and we were all actually had our hands so that our palms were up, so that the bottom of our fingers was on the table, but our palms were up. And this girl there, she couldn't believe it. I mean, I've seen table tipping before, and I don't think it's anything to do with the spirit world. I think it's subconscious. It's our own energy. That's just my theory. It's still paranormal. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, this table moved an immense distance.
See, when you're in the building, do you get a feeling again, like we were saying the theatre and what have you, that there's people wandering about? There's still people doing whatever they used to do back in the day, servants and stuff, whatever you want to call them.
Well, the lady who's there, Fiona, she doesn't own the building. Like I said, this millionaire bought it for his daughter as an investment. But Fiona's in there a lot, and a lot of the time by herself. And she said there's definitely something here. Fiona's quite a spiritual lady, so she's not that skeptical. You know, she's a firm believer in spirit and stuff like that. But she says whatever is here, it's not nasty. It said it's actually you know pleasant in her opinion. But you saw on the, I don't know if you can flick me back to those pictures of the stairs. I don't know whether or not it's on there.
No, hold on. That's the wrong one. It's the one before. The one. They ones.
Yeah, you can't actually see it, but you see roughly above my head, there's a huge chandelier, and they had ladders and everything up to clean this chandelier. And you see that chandelier that's there? It's like it's like that one in the dining room, but huge. And they had sort of all ladders and everything to get up there to clean it. And she said, I was on here, she said, with my partner. She said, and something came down the stairs past us. She said, you could feel it, you know, go down the stairs. And she said, it wasn't nasty, or I didn't feel it was frightening or anything, but we both felt that something was there with us, you know. And we felt it actually go down the stairs and past us, you know. So it's a building that has a long haunted history, and I think we've probably only tapped it. One of the areas they've had a lot of stuff is the picture of the whole house. You probably noticed there's a third floor. There's windows in the roof. You can't really see it from that one because
I was going to ask you about them, Mark. I'll get the picture. No, hold on. You can see I'm experienced in doing these things. Right there.
Yeah. You can see the windows at the top. Yeah. There are other rooms up there, and there's businesses. They've got that. She's got the house more or less filled with businesses, you know, that are doing. It's sort of like upmarket health and beauty stuff. As I said, Fiona herself does the hot stones, which, trust me, Scott, is really, really nice. It's just like somebody sort of putting something warm over you. They put all oil on you, and they just sort of rub these stones, and the stones have been heated, so you get the sort of warmth. It's quite pleasant, you know.
Does it? I'm going to appear a total idiot here, but I don't care. Does it not burn you?
No. They're warm. You know, they are hot, but not hot enough to burn you or hurt you. It's a bit like having you have a hot water bottle and you put a hot water bottle against you, and it's not got piping hot water in it, so you can bear it on your skin. But then you've got sort of oil on your skin, and then these obviously stones are smooth. She heats the stones in a apparatus. It's like a small oven, I guess. And then, you know, when the stones it tells her when they're the right temperature. And yeah, she just, with oil, she just sort of holds the stone in her hand and sort of rubs it with your legs and back and everything. It's very pleasant, to be honest.
I might, you never know, I might get a spa treatment as a present one day or something. I'll try that. So the top rooms, I saying, with that staff rooms, would that maybe the servants' quarters, whatever, back in the day, as they say?
Well, generally speaking, in old houses, the servants were put at the top of the house, basically because it took longer to get to your rooms, so it was more convenient for the other. On the other hand, heat rises, so in the days before central heating, probably the upper part of the house would be the warmest. So in the winter, and obviously that has a negative in the summer. If it's baking hot, all that heat goes up. You know what it's like with your attic. You go in your attic in the summer, it's like a hot house, isn't it? In the winter, it's like a fridge.
Aye, so you know, you and the winter is good, but in the summer's not so good.
Yeah.
What about activity-wise on that floor? Because you always, I mean, you see all these films and stuff like that. And the activity's always in the old servants' quarters, staff room, whatever you want to call them. Faces at the window, all that stuff.
They have had activity there, Scott, and it's more in the region of if you look at the roof, the centre window that you can see there above the main front door. But we actually did the last time we did an investigation, we went up there because the lady had reported that some of her customers that used the room up there had reported stuff. And so we went and tried it, but we didn't get anything. Most of our stuff happened in the dining room and the ballroom, which is on the ground floor on the left-hand side. There's also a cellar in there as well, which is just, Fiona said to me, you can't go down there, Mark. It's just full of, it's chock-a-block. There isn't enough room for you to move. But I would like to go in the cellar and try down there. She may have cleared it out.
I love a really good basement or a cellar. You know, that's what I'm called. Well, amazing basements, and I just I've done my own vigils in them, and I don't know, there's something. I never go in activity, you know, not a peep, nothing. But it was just, I don't know, they've got a whole different kind of atmosphere. I don't know if it's psychological or not, because you're in the cellar, so this is the bottom of the house and stuff like that. But I think they just hold a totally different atmosphere for the rest of whatever the building might be.
It might be psychological. It might be like psychological, Scott, because if you've been in a lot of cellars, as I have, they're nearly always cold, very cold. So I think that can sort of provide a bit of an atmosphere. You know, if you're going looking for ghosts and things like that, if you're in an area that's cold, it always seems to have a little bit more of a sinister effect. But very often you do get activities in basements. So as you would, in that upper flooring, what would be the servants' quarters, So it's interesting. I'm glad they didn't turn it into a load of flats.
Irene loves herself. The cellar in the basement in Caldwell, the girls always reported that they'd seen some kind of shadow done in it, and you could hear odd noises and stuff like that. But at night time, there was never any Dalfaharn as well. I done a lone vigil down there, and you couldn't see a hand in front of your face. I was sitting on a bit of stone. I was just myself, and I never got. I think the K2 flashed very quickly once, and I was doing it for the best part of an hour. And as you say, it was cold, but there wasn't a peep for anybody, but just you can't beat a good cellar, a good basement. There's a hospital that was disused now, Hartwood it's called. It was a psychiatric hospital back in the day. Unfortunately, last week it was set on fire. Don't know the extent of the damage to it, but that is reported to have a massive basement. You know, as you see in the American, you know, the films, the old American asylums and stuff, the basements that they've got. Well, Hartwood's meant to have that kind of basement, and I would love to get down into it, but as I say, unfortunately, it was on fire for, I don't know, best part of a week. So I don't know what the extent of the damage is, if it's even accessible now, you know. But no, you can't be a good seller. That's what I say. But the next picture I've got here is, well, that's
Sharnbrook again. Yeah, that's the foyer. So when you go through the front doors downstairs, yeah. So you've gone through all the pictures now.
That's the one. That was really interesting. I know we went a bit off topic a few times, but you know, we always do. Can it be helped? So out the two of them, you know, what would you say? Which one would you say gave up the most kind of activity?
Well, I've obviously done Sharnbrook a lot more times than I've done Brook House. Although Brook House is very close to me, I grew up literally. You know, as I said, I'm within 5 miles of it, Scott, as the crow flies. And but I've only done Brook House, I think, about 3 or 4 times, where I've done Sharnbrook a lot more. But what I found with Sharnbrook is that it's a bit all or nothing. You know, you either get something or and it's good, or you get nothing at all. If I had to make a choice, taking into account that I've investigated one a lot more than the other, I would choose Brook House. It's just got a feel to it, not a nasty feel, but I think that it's got a lot of secrets to sort of yield up yet. That's just the way I feel. We're going back there we're going back in January, just after New Year, actually, quite early January. So you know, and they're fairly, you know, they don't hammer you too much on money either. So it means that my relatively small team of 12 people, it's affordable. You know, we couldn't go. I mean, I go to Hinchingbrooke a lot, but my lot say, "Oh, well, when are you going to take us into Hinchingbrooke?" And I say, "Well, it's 900 quid. There's 12 of us. You know, divide 900 quid between 12. It's a lot of money. Bearing in mind, you might get absolutely nothing." So yeah, if you go in there, if you go in there with 30 people, then it's affordable. You know, it's worth 30 quid to go into Hinchingbrooke for the night. But
even just
I prefer.
I mean, you know, 30 quid, you know, as you said, you might not get anything, but I think 30 quid's a pretty good deal for just, you know, being able to investigate that kind of place.
Yeah,
you know,
you're in there
you
from
do get nothing.
7 o'clock till 2 in the morning. You've got the whole, every room that Paranormal Lockdown went into, you've got access to every room. There's a few rooms that have got, because it's a school now, so there's a few rooms that have got records on children, you know, children's records. So you know, they're taboo. You can't go in those rooms. But then there's nothing really in there. All of the downstairs is accessible, you know, and half of the upstairs. So you know, I think the secret is with Hinchingbrooke, is it's a lot of money. So, and they don't really do commercial ghost hunting companies, because these commercial ghost hunting companies were looking at Hinchingbrooke and saying, we can charge 60 quid a head for that, yet they're only paying 30 quid a head. So 30 quid per person times 30, it's a hell of a lot of money. So we tend not to really, we try and avoid, you know, we want to make it. So what we generally say to teams is say, look, buddy up with another team, each bring 15 people, So you can investigate in 2 groups, and it's 30 quid a head. It's not bad for a place like that,
No, it's not. It's just, as you say, 30 quid, 7 till 2 in a place. It's not just an old hut. It's not an old abandoned building or anything. You're talking about a really beautiful location, a beautiful house, and you've got access to X amount of rooms as well. So, and you might get nothing, but you go home. You still go home with experience. I mean, I've said this in many a show. People think, to have a good investigation, you have to get some kind of result, some kind of evidence, whatever you want to call it. To me, I think that's a load of crap. It's good if you get good captures. You go home that night, we get a couple of good EVPs. It was really good. But to me, the whole enjoyment part of it is just doing it. Even if you get nothing,
just being there. It's got a good Scottish link to it, Scott. James I, Scottish king, when he came down from Edinburgh to collect the crown in London, he stopped at Hinchinbrook, and he loved it, especially the hunting. And when it's documented, he returned there 15 times at least, and he got so it's likely he took his son with him, who was Charles I. And as the house at that time was owned by the Cromwell family, it's quite likely that Oliver Cromwell and Charles I, as children, that was the first time they ever met, which I think is yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of
and then when you get
sorry, Mark, where you go?
When the next family, the Cromwells, were there, and James I actually bankrupted them because he kept coming back so many times, and entertaining royalty is expensive. And the Cromwells went bankrupt, and they sold it to a family called the Montagues, and it was a guy called Sir Sidney Montague, and he was the first Montague there. But he had a son called Edward, and this was at the time when Oliver Cromwell had died, been buried in Westminster Abbey, and Oliver Cromwell's son was running the country and not doing a very good job. And Edward Montague at Hinchinbrook, they saw an opportunity to go and get Charles II. He was in exile in the Netherlands, and Edward Montague went with Samuel Pepys, the diarist, and a flotilla of ships to the Netherlands and brought Charles II back, and the monarchy was restored. But this is my whole point here, which a lot of people get. The first people to live in, after it was a priory, the first people to live in Hinchinbrook House were the Cromwell family. They brought a monarchy down, and then the Montagues, who came after them, Edward Montague, brought it back. And Charles II was so grateful that Edward Montague had gone and brought him back to England. He gave him a title, the Earl of Sandwich. And there were 9 Earls of Sandwich for Hinchinbrook. They were there for nearly 350 years. So that house had got 2 families. One was very much involved with bringing a monarchy down, and then the second one that was in there, the Montagues, played a huge part in bringing the monarchy back. And that is the most sort of profound thing about Hinchinbrook, I think. That sort of, with me historian's head on that.
Not a lot of people probably be aware of that fact, and that's another thing I find fascinating about history. There's that so much history about, and a lot of people don't know, they don't appreciate it. No, it's not true that they, just never heard about it, basically. I always say it's always good to spend time with like-minded. It's good, Eileen, I've investigated Eileen before, but I've just get back to what I was saying, people who they think they need to get evidence every time, and no, you don't. We've done a few investigations, and like yourself and Eileen have, we've had diddly squat, we've had nothing. Ever been there 2 or 3 hours, but you still had a good night, because I was actually saying this to Sarah last night, the night before. One of the things, because we were thinking that we're planning. Start again. We're planning what we're calling a silent investigation at Loudon. what we're going to do, I don't know if you've ever done anything like this, Mark. What we're going to do is we're going to take stuff like gadgets out of the loud and K2 cables, put them down, put a camera on it, and then get back to the car and just sit and watch. Some people might find it boring, but we're just going to sit and watch to see if anything sets it off without us actually being in there and asking questions. Does that make sense? So usually you're at the location, you know, anybody there, can you do this, can you do that, blah, blah, blah. Well, well, what happens if, you know, I've always wondered in courtyards, castles, wherever it is, Mark seems to have disappeared. Mark seems to have gone. That was weird. 2 seconds, folks. See if I can get him back. That was weird. I don't know what's happened there, folks, but Mark seems to have left us. I have mailed him to see if he's, I don't know, maybe he's hit the wrong button or something happened before in it. But just, you know, as I was saying, what we're planning to do, we're going to go to Loudon, going to, you know, set up a camera, do it as a live. Some people might find it boring, but we're going to, because I've always wondered, you know, when we're no investigating locations, is there actual activity going on? So, well, why don't we just set up some stuff and we'll go and sit in the car and we'll just watch a kind of paranormal stakeout kind of thing, if that makes sense. In fact, that's what we could call it that, couldn't we? Paranormal stakeout. I think that'd be quite an exciting wee name for it. So we're going to do that. Maybe sit for an hour in the car and then I'll go back in. Zapped. I don't know what's happened to Riley. He's I mailed him as well. He just seems to have kaput. I don't know. He's buggered off, as they say in Scotland. So we're going to do that. Sit in the car for about an hour and then I'll get back in. Regardless of we still sit in the car, I'm going to just get back in and sit at certain parts of the courtyard and just sit and listen. I'm not going to ask. I'll introduce myself, obviously, out of respect, but I'm just going to sit and listen and watch and see if we hear anything, see anything, you know, but we'll do it as a live. So some people might find that boring, some might not, but I don't know what's happened to Mark, folks. He just seems to have disappeared. But see, we're back with some shows. Tomorrow night we have got Louisa and Ben Winfield. They're coming in. And then the Wednesday night we have Rosie and Emma Cardy from the Ghoul Gang. Rosie and Emma were up here a few weeks ago when Sarah and I tied old proverbial knot, you know. So we're having a catch up with him. Next week we've got Barry John. Put a camera on them. Right, Mark's saying he's in the studio. Wait a minute.
Can you hear me?
We got him back. I don't know what happened to you. He disappeared.
I don't know. I just, I did actually, last night, we've had some power cuts here. I don't know if we had a quick power cut, but I've got a digital clock behind me and it was flashing. So looks like there's been a power cut.
All right, we power surge. You're back now. It just vanished. I was talking about the investigation that we're planning. That's what I was talking about while you were away. I just put a camera on. What we're planning to do, Mark, is I say we're going to put some gadgets on the cut card. We're going to sit in the car for about an hour, watch it on camera. Pardon me, because I've always wondered, if, you know, these places are active when nobody's there, when nobody's investigating. And then after about an hour, I'm going to get into the cut card, leave the girls in the car, they'll still be watching it, and I'm going to sit in certain bits of the cut card and just, you know, I'll introduce myself, obviously, but I'm not going to ask any questions or so. I'm just going to sit and see if anything happens, not, you know, hear anything, see anything, whatever. So I'm going to call it Paranormal Stakeout. I just came up with that name when you were away on vacation. He teleported. He had a power surge, a power cut, whatever you want to call it. So that's what have you ever done anything like that? Just, you know, set up cameras and just buggered off?
Yeah. I've left a static camera in places. I can't really honestly say I've been that successful in catching anything, but I'll tell you what I do, which is something that you could try, is if you're somewhere and you think you've connected with a spirit or whatever, I always say to whatever it is, are there any other spirits here? And if they say yes, I say, will you stick with us and introduce them to us? And I have found that you can do that, and you know, you get activity all over the building wherever you go. So whether this spirit is hanging along or whether he is or not, I would say, or I say he or she or whatever, I would actually turn around and say, are you, you know, picked up this spirit and call it Bob. Are you still with us, Bob? Can you introduce us to, you know, the rest of the spirits here and stuff like that? And that has been successful, you know. So it's something to try. Likewise, if you leave something like a trigger object, I always call out. I don't just leave it and walk away. I say, look, so there's spirit people here in the room with this and the astral beings. We've left this whatever it is here. Whilst we're away, could you move it possibly to show us that you're here? We'd be very grateful if you would. Blah blah blah. And you know, that, you know, talking to them and that can be quite useful. You know. As I said,
that's why we like. That's why we like Loudon that much, because we have built up a kind of relationship with spirits of theirs. So Eileen, she's been there with us as well, and we know there's more than one, two spirits there. You know, we have got EVPs or spirits. What we think, it sounds like spirits talking to each other. And then when Sarah and I get married, so we get married at Loudon, we were lucky enough to get married inside the actual crypt. And our bridesmaids and flower girls, they had two of them had a red rose each, and two of them had a black rose, because it was a black and red team wedding. And what we did after the ceremony, they went up to the Dempster family plot and laid the roses at the Dempster plot. And a way of saying thank you, basically, for the spirit allowing us to be married there. So I was actually saying to Sarah the week after we get married, I wonder if that will give us a stronger connection to the cut now that we've actually been married there. Will spirits come forward more? Maybe, maybe not. You know, it's just, it's one of these questions. No doubt you get them as well. They'll pop in your head and they just go round and round and round, you know. And then another question will pop in again. So I don't know, laying the roses, maybe, you know, another connection, us getting married in the crypt might bring us close, because we know, as I was saying earlier on about the smell of perfume, Lady Flora Campbell, who used to live in Loudon Castle, she's been reported many times, had been there, been felt there, been seen there. So I don't know whether, because this is, we get married in the crypt that she's actually buried in. So would this maybe encourage her to come forward a wee bit more, you know, trust-wise, you know yourself. There's a million and one different questions, you know.
I think to be honest, that, you know, whether when you're dabbling in this thing, sort of thing, Scott, what you have to do, this is my opinion, other people have a different opinion, is I think you have to be respectful, and you know, I don't do any of this sort of threatening calling out you know, which, I mean, most famous person for doing it was Derek Acora. You know, he used to, you know, come on, you coward, and, you know, taunt and stuff like that. I don't particularly feel comfortable doing that. Basically, because I don't know what I'm dealing with.
And that's it. I mean, I will admit, when we, Sarah and I first started way back 2020, we hadn't done investigations, and we were at Greyfriars one night, and I did a wee bit of threatening. But you know yourself, man, not that you would say when you first started, you know, you're picking up things that you've watched on telly and stuff like that, you know, and it's the longer you go and the more you learn, and you know, yeah, well,
I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying I'm right. That's just purely my attitude.
I totally agree with you. You know, if you're wanting to build up some kind of communication with a spirit and keep it, you know, ongoing, then you need to be respectful, because you know, you need to remember, we call them spirit, but they're still people. This is I don't know how you feel about this. I've just noticed the time. We'll wind up a wee minute. This is one thing that annoys me when I watch investigations. And no, again, no disrespect to people that do it, but it's when you get these people and they say there's something in that corner. You know, there's something over there. There's no something. There's someone. You know, that something is an actual person. You know, they used to have a physical body, and that's if there is anything there. But it's when they say there's something in that corner. No, there's not. There's someone in that corner. Yeah. And as you say, but it's all about respect. You've got to have respect. You know, you've got to respect spirits. You know, if they're willing to take the time and come forward and speak to you.
Yeah.
You know. And that is important. We've been lucky enough that everybody, don't get it, we've met a couple of cabbages down the line, you know, that don't know the meaning of the word respect, but no doubt you've encountered them as well. But I'm talking about the physical, I'm not talking about spirit, I'm talking about physical people. But no, it's all about respect, and the more respect you show, the more respect you'll get back. At the end of the day, it's plain and simple. But well, I think we'll wind up there. That's nearly 2 hours we've been on. Didn't realise that was the time until you disappeared. You know what I mean? With your wee power surge. I got a new desk. As I say, I'm in a new bit of the house, but I got a new desk and a new chair. And I've got a wee rug underneath it, and it keeps thinging up. But this is quite a fancy desk. This desk is up and down. Wait to see this, right? What, see if we notice any of that. Before we wind it up, if I can see the button. Hold on. This is quite posh. Like, you see the camera moving? See that?
Yeah.
Looks like I'm shrinking to it. I don't know what that means. Oh, you still there?
Yeah.
Something just collapsed. Oh, my camera's disappeared. Hold on, Mark. You can still hear me?
It's still working.
It's still. We slight technical glitch here, folks. Hold on. Right. I just adjust that.
Yeah.
Right. I put it up too high. That's what it was. And I forgot the cable to stretch. I mean, so that's my new day. I think I'll put it back down to be safe. Don't want anywhere myself. You know what I mean? So where can people find you, Mark? Everybody looking for you. Where can they find you?
Facebook. Facebook, there's my book has got its own group called, it's a bit of a mouthful, The Haunted History of Huntingdonshire. I've got a website, but again, it's convoluted. The best thing probably is Facebook. If you just, I've got 2 groups on Facebook. One is called after my book, The Haunted History of Huntingdonshire. And there's another group The haunted history of Huntingdonshire is just totally Huntingdonshire, nothing else. But there's another group that's linked to it called Haunted History, and that covers the whole of the UK and sometimes outside of the UK. Not very often though. It's nearly always UK sites. And they're all and so, I tend to put sort of interesting YouTube videos as stuff on the haunted history one, but the other one, the book one, I try to keep it everything Huntingdonshire.
So give them a wee look up, folks, because definitely you've heard Mark talking tonight. Very interesting, genuine guy, and he knows his stuff. Apart from when he disappeared for that 2 minutes because he had a power surge. Well, that's what he says. That's the excuse, and he's sticking with that. Do you know what I mean? But I'll keep a hold of you just after we come up, Mark, just for a wee second.
Okay.
So a big thanks to Mark. You will be seeing him again, folks. We're going to wind up there. We're back tomorrow night with Ben and Louisa Winfield, and then Wednesday night we've got the Ghoul Gang. But you will be seeing this young chap, and emphasise the word young. You will be seeing Mr. Egerton again. So thanks very much, and enjoy the rest of your week. Well, let's say enjoy the rest of the week. It's only Monday, isn't it? Enjoy the week. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow night. All right, folks. So cheers and bye.
Bye.